Glenn Beck were the only people who liked the Spider-Man musical.
Oh, you mean the Broadway show?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of hate feeling the same as Glenn Beck does about anything. I didn't see the show. I saw a rehearsal of it before it opened up, before anybody saw it. And the rehearsal that I saw, and it was just about 15 minutes of it. They had a special little thing and they showed, it was wonderful. But I didn't see the show itself. Now, the funny thing about it, I used to joke with them and I used to say, how can I have a cameo in a Broadway show? Because it's live, I would have to be there every night. They figured out a way to do it. I don't know if you're aware of this, but now, as the show is about to start, as people are settling in their seats, you hear a voice. Hello, this is Stan Lee welcoming you. And I give him a whole little speech telling him not to try to reach up and grab the performers. And so it's like having a cameo. I'm there in every performance, but just my voice. Is that what we were talking about? Is that the show he meant?
Yes.
Because I'm doing another musical with a Japanese rock star named Yoshiki. Some of you may not have, most of you may not have heard of him, but he's one of the hottest stars in the Orient. And now he's coming over here, and we're doing a music video and a comic book, and he's going to present a big rock show here. So remember, you heard it first at this convention. Stan Lee and Yoshiki are going to tear the musical world apart. Oh, and the comic book that we're doing about him is being done by Todd McFarlane. So when we do something, we don't kid around. Somebody here may not know who Todd McFarlane is and is wondering what's the big deal. He's the guy who created Spawn, dummy.
By the way, if I may say something, Julie Taymor, who the producers fired, is a genius. She is a great artist. And very often producers screw up great art. And when Stan saw that show, Julie Taymor was still in charge. She did a Beatles movie with that also the producers chopped up, but if you see it, I think it's called The Other Side of Something. It's great. And also she directed The Lion King on Broadway, which is one of the biggest hits of all time. And she directed Titus, the Shakespeare. So the problem is many times producers screw up the art. And I think in the case of Spider-Man, Mr. Lee was correct. You were correct that the version you saw was a good version. It was really good.
But all I'm thinking about is now your picture is on the, now they got me. But all the time you were talking, your picture was on the screen, I didn't see me, and suddenly the conversation became very boring, you know.
Let's get Jason Palmer back. Who's next? Wait a minute, there was somebody very jumping up and down. Yes, with the very nice glasses.
Hi, Stan. I hate to bum everybody out, but my question's kind of a bummer.
His question is a bummer.
Sorry. Okay, so
My answers are usually bummers, so we're even.
growing up, I've been drawing since I was 4 years old, drawing or otherwise creating. Coming up, growing up and through high school, everybody said, "Oh, you're so talented, you can do anything." So, I went to college because that's what you do after high school. And I got my bachelor's in animation at a state university in Pennsylvania. And I didn't really have a lot to show for the whole experience. It's, I wasn't one of those guys that...
Can you get to the question, please? I apologize, but Mr. Lee is very, very busy. I told him to get to the
I'm sorry, I
question.
apologize.
I heard that, yeah.
Okay.
I guess the long and short of it is, I'm someone who's not getting any older, and I've kind of been out of it for like 5 years now, and I want to get back into, what is your advice for someone like me?
What's your advice for someone who wants to get back into the drawing and the world of art?
Do it.
Fair enough, thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't hear the preamble. Had you been in comics and you got out of it, and now you want to get back into it again? Is that
Yeah,
what
he
it
went to
is?
school, and then he went out and in, and just wanted to know how to get back in. What's your advice?
Well, it sounded like a joke, but if you want to get back into anything, the way to do it is to do it. I don't know whether you want to be a writer. I don't even know where you are. I'm looking there. That you might be there or there. I have no idea. Where is he? Where should I be looking?
Right there, that guy
Down there?
standing up.
I
yeah.
can't see anybody.
Yeah,
See,
the lights
I
are-
don't see that well either. I don't hear well. I don't see well. I'm some celebrity. Anyway, if you want to be a writer, the way to get into it is start writing and send your stuff to the editors. If you want to be an artist, do some artwork, and there's no shortcut. You just have to do it. I see a hand up, but that isn't his hand. That's probably somebody else.
But this young lady here, stand up and say your question. What is it?
I see somebody.
The microphone people are doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
This is very
thank you,
exciting. It's
microphone
like a
people.
mystery. You don't know who's talking. You don't know what they're saying. You don't know who they
You would
are.
stop for one
I
second,
don't know
you
why
would
I'm
know.
here.
Just one. Stop for 1 second, you'll know who's talking.
You mean I'm talking
She's
too much,
look-
right?
Yeah.
I do that. I tend to.
If you can pick any actor to play Doctor Strange in a movie, who would it be?
Who would you pick if, out of any actor in the world? Who would you pick for Doctor Strange?
Me. But
Good question.
But it'll probably end up being Johnny Depp.
Yes, with the very unusual arm there, boxing glove.
Mr. Lee, I was wondering about the Captain America movie and Thor movie and the like. What do you think that Jack Kirby would think of them?
I couldn't hear the question. I'm sorry, I did not understand it.
It started out, I think, with "I was wondering." I heard that.
I was.
And then the words kind of ran together to me.
About the Captain America movie and the Thor movie. What do you think that Jack Kirby would think of them?
What would Jack Kirby think of the Captain America and the Thor movie?
Well, I don't know. The Thor movie, I think Jack would have liked. Jack's tastes and mine were pretty similar, and I thought the Thor movie was great. So I'm guessing he would have thought so. I haven't seen the Captain America movie. I've only seen my own cameo, which, needless to say, is magnificent. And that's about it.
There is
I'm
a
sorry.
little boy very patiently waiting for a question. A very little boy, very waiting for a question, and there he goes.
Are you planning on making any other superheroes?
Are you planning on creating any additional superheroes? Any other ones?
Well, I have met so many people here who are such characters. No, I haven't created too many superheroes since last week. I'm sort of taking this week off. I have a new thing I'm doing for the Archie Company, of all people, called the, what is it called? The Mighty Seven. It hasn't come out yet. Needless to say, it's 7 new characters. Oh, and it's the world's first and only reality comic book, because we have real people like me in it, and a lot of celebrities appear, and the comic book company that publishes the comic book is part of the story. It's a very unusual, you'll see it when it comes out. And I'm doing some books for the Boom comic book company, Soldier Zero and The Traveler and something else. And so, but I haven't created anything new in quite a few days.
Stan, the gentleman waving the hat there. Mic is on its way to you. Uh-oh.
I see somebody in white walking,
Homeland
trying
Security
to get through.
t-shirt.
Now he's walking this way.
It says Homeland Security fighting terrorism since 1492.
I heard 1492. What was the first part of that?
Homeland Security. It's a reference to the fact that he exterminated the Native Americans. Anyway, what's your
But what is
question?
the question?
Yeah, the question hasn't happened yet.
That's a great segue. Welcome first to Albuquerque.
Welcome to Albuquerque.
Oh, thank you. Hey, I gotta tell you,
Greetings, Stan
I love
Lee.
Albuquerque.
Yeah.
I
Which is
have-
a Navajo word for beautiful mountains.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. I've never
No, it
been to
isn't.
Albuquerque before, and I think it's great, and I think the people are great, and I'm sorry I've never been here before, and I'm sure I'm going to come back again. It's terrific.
My question, sir, is would you consider a Navajo superhero?
Why not? I made up an American Indian superhero years ago in the Fantastic Four. I forget his name now. Who? Yeah, Wyatt Wingfoot. That's right. And for some reason, when I stopped doing the book, they didn't use him very much. I think they ought to bring him back and use him more. I'll talk to the guys. But I thought he was great.
By the way, if I may interject, there's a little movie called Poultrygeist, The Night of the Chicken Dead, which deals with the Native American and the chicken zombie combination. Just if anybody's interested, available safely and securely at the Troma booth. Mr. Lee unfortunately refused to be in the movie because we could not pay his airfare to Tromaville.
See, what you people don't understand, you think of the Troma movies as simply comedic horror stories, but they have a message. There's an underlying message of brotherhood and tolerance and love for our fellow man. And in his own way, Lee, what's your name again? In his own way,
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt over here Lloyd has done such a wonderful job bringing people together and making it like one world. And I think we all owe you a great debt of thanks for the philosophy that you put.
I'm overcome, Stan. Thank you. Better than getting an Oscar. Actually, moderating this is probably the greatest honor that I've had in my 40 years of failed filmmaking. Moderating for the great Stan Lee. Thank you, Stan.
Have you been moderating this?
I've been turning you loose. That's my job. Who has a question for Stan in the back? In the back there, please. I think it's a lady. It's a non-male in the back, white shirt, hair, looking around, pointing to herself.
I'm still in the picture there.
Yeah, indeed.
What inspired you to create Spider-Man?
What inspired you to create Spider-Man?
Greed. I needed the money. All right, I'm going to tell you the story of Spider-Man. I've told it before to other audiences. Why shouldn't you have to suffer through it also? I have hated teenage sidekicks in comic books. I always felt if I were a superhero, like Captain America, I wouldn't pal around with a kid named Bucky, or if I were Batman, I wouldn't pal around with a teenager named Robin. For a grown man to be with a teenager all the time, you know, people would talk after a while. So I hated teenage sidekicks, and just for fun, I thought maybe I'd like to do a superhero with a teenager who was a real like a real guy, not some idiot athlete. And so I came up with Peter Parker. And then I thought I wanted him to have a lot of problems, because I always felt in the comic books, nobody has the kind of problems that you and I have. Nobody ever has an ingrown toenail or an allergy attack or anything like that. And then I thought Spider-Man would be a great name. So I brought the idea to my publisher. At that time, I was working for a publisher. And he said, "This is the worst idea I have ever heard of in my whole life." He said, "First of all, people hate spiders, you can't call a hero Spider-Man. You can't have a superhero with problems. Stan, don't you know what a superhero is? They don't have problems, they're super. And finally, you want him to be a teenager? Teenagers can only be sidekicks. So he didn't want me to, he wouldn't let me do Spider-Man. Months later, we had a book called Amazing Fantasy, and we were going to drop it. Now, when you drop a book, no one cares what you put in the last issue, because you're dropping it anyway. So just to get it out of my system, I put Spider-Man in that issue. It sold like crazy. So about a month later, my publisher came over to me and he said, "Hey, Stan, you remember that character Spider-Man that we both liked so much? Why don't we do a series?" And that's how Spidey was born. So there's a moral to that lesson. Don't always feel you have to listen to the so-called experts. If you think you have a good idea, stay with it. Don't let people talk you out of it, unless it's really a terrible idea. I'm still on the screen, so that's a good sign.
What's that?
I said I'm still on the screen. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. What's your question? It's coming close. Stay back, stay back.
I was wondering how much involvement you had in the 1978 Japanese Spider-Man television show.
I had no involvement at all in the old Japanese, the live-action television show. Tell you a funny thing about that show, though. This was a series that ran quite a while in Japan. It was Spider-Man done their own way. And I couldn't understand it because almost every episode was the same. Peter Parker would be walking along somewhere and he'd see a big monster flying, a robot in the sky that was going to destroy the whole city of Tokyo. So Peter Parker would quickly turn into Spider-Man, and he'd run and get his own robot, which had been buried under the ground, and that would come up, and then his robot would fight the bad robot and crush it, and that was the end. He won. Then the next episode, a different robot was about to destroy Tokyo. Peter Parker would see it, turn into Spider-Man, get his robot, fly up, and destroy that one. Every episode I saw was the same, but they had a different robot in each one. And I understand it was very successful, so it proves I know nothing about series.
The second part of that question was did you know that the show actually encountered financial issues after the 5th episode, and they were not able to film any more robot footage, so they had to recycle stuff, which is why the show became so repetitive.
They weren't able.
After the fifth show, they ran into money problems, so they kept recycling the same robots.
Maybe. So that's why I saw the same robot all the time. Well, at least I know now. Thank you for imparting that invaluable bit of information.
Way in the back, miss in the back. Yes, that's it, that's it. Yes, you. Thank you. I hope it's a miss.
Hi. Did you have any inspiration when you first started the Marvel Comics?
What?
Did you have any inspiration when you first started the Marvel Comics?
Did you have any inspiration when I couldn't get the...
first started Marvel Comics. What inspired you, I guess?
desire to keep my job. Actually, I had been, it's my wife's fault. I had been doing all kinds of magazines for years at Marvel. Westerns, romance, teenage, animated stuff, war stories, horror stories. And I didn't feel we were getting anywhere. And unfortunately, I worked for a publisher who felt that the audience was either very young children or semi-literate adults. And he didn't want me to use words of more than 2 syllables. He's afraid people wouldn't understand them. And he didn't want me to concentrate on characterization or plot. Just get a lot of action, have a lot of people shooting at each other and fighting, and that's what he thought that the readers wanted. Well, I needed my job, so I did that for many years, and after a while I couldn't handle it anymore, and I told my wife I want to quit and try something else, which I wish I had done, because now I'd probably be Johnny Depp, but I missed my chance. Anyway, my wife said to me, you know, Stan, if you want to quit, why don't you do one book the way you want to do it? The worst that can happen is he'll fire you, but so what? You want to quit anyway. So I figured that's good advice, and I did the Fantastic Four, which had everything he didn't want. Thank you. It had, the characters didn't have secret identities. The teenager wasn't just a sidekick, but he had a superpower too, and he didn't want to be a superhero. Johnny Storm just wanted to ride his Corvette, a Chevy Corvette, and go out with girls, and he was a real guy. And one of the heroes was the ugliest man on earth. So it was my kind of story, and I tried to concentrate on the dialogue and the personality, and it worked. So then, since that worked, he asked me to do another one. I forget which the second one was. It was either the X-Men or the Hulk, and then we moved along, and that's really how it started. It started because my wife said, why don't you do the one thing you want? The worst that can happen is he'll fire you. So whenever you want to do something, just say to yourself, the worst thing that can happen is I'll give it. No, you better not. That's not a smart thing to do.
I think we have one more question, and apparently this child here is very popular. This small child apparently has something very special.
A small child shall lead them.
Yes.
What is your favorite aspect of creativity? Do you like writing better or drawing?
Do you prefer the writing or the drawing when it comes to creativity?
Well, as a writer, I prefer the writing because I don't do the drawing. Although I was lucky, I worked with the artist because I also was the art director, so I worked closely with him. But frankly, if I had to look at just either the writing or the drawing, I'd rather look at the drawing. It's more interesting to look at a picture than a page of typed words, that's for sure.
Well, on that very happy note, I've been instructed that we must conclude this wonderful seminar. We can break up into discussion groups. There would be no Troma Entertainment without Stan Lee. It is obvious if you've seen the movies, if you've seen The Toxic Avenger and Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, that they are very much, that they have the human foibles that Stan created in the comic books. And let us have a huge, huge, huge Stan Lee applause for Mr. Stan
Thank you.
Lee.
Thank you. And a huge applaud for Lloyd Kaufman, who's the only guy who would have put up with me.
Thank you. And I've been asked to remind you that at 12 o'clock noon, there is a special VIP signing. I, of course, not being a VIP, will not be part of it, but I will go back to the underground. But apparently at 12 o'clock. Also, Burning Paradise Video is sponsoring the Troma Dance Film Festival, which I've been asked to mention, which takes place from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and it's all free, of course.
I gotta
Stan
thank
Lee,
one
thank
more-
you, Stan Lee.
I got to thank one more person.
oops.
This fella who's been standing there doing what he's doing, to me, is a real hero. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's an absolute honor for me to be able to do this for you. Thank you.
And this guy who created this whole thing with his partner, this is one of the best conventions I've been to. Well organized, great people. You did a great job.
Excelsior. Thank you, Stan.